Welcome to Heart Power with Saskia, the podcast where we explore what it means to be truly powerful from the inside out. Hi, and thanks for joining me. This is the first episode of Heart Power. I'm very excited and I'm just want to get into it. So what I want to first talk about is why I'm actually doing this. I really want to help people. I just feel called to speak and to put my voice out there. I just love to help share different tools and just explore different philosophical ideas. So I'm just going into it with no expectations and not a lot of experience with doing this sort of thing, but here we go. You got to start somewhere, right? So when I was 3, I could only speak German, or maybe I was actually 4, but when I started kindergarten, I didn't realize that none of the kids wanted to play with me because they couldn't actually understand me. I didn't realize that's why they didn't want to play with me. I just took that as rejection, and that ended up being one of my core wounds of being rejected or feeling just not accepted. Coming into my first space where I was with other children and not with my parents, I felt rejected and just not included. I then kept drawing to me experiences where I was not included or felt not included or misunderstood and felt like something was wrong with me, that I didn't fit in. And it took me a long time to realize that I'm actually not meant to fit in. These challenges that occur to us like that are there to be worked through. Doing this is a healing thing in itself for me, to be speaking and to be putting myself out into the world and sharing instead of hiding away, which it's been a long process for me to move out of that. It feels really important to do this. So we need to, I guess, prove our unconscious beliefs wrong and rewire ourselves to a point where we're ready to step into things, and instead of being overly fearful and being blocked by our fears, we break through them and we prove those false beliefs wrong. So what is heart power? It's all about the inner spirit and shining that out into the world. It's about what makes us truly powerful. Who we are at our source cannot be taken away from us. It's relationships can be taken away, houses, money, physical things, but who we are and how we love in the world is unlimited and cannot be taken away from us. What makes us powerful is that essence, that God self that is flowing through us. So the more we connect to that and clear out all our filters and our blocks, the more we can be authentic in the world and feel free and express ourselves and just create and do what we're here to do what we're meant to do. True power is gentle. It's not an external thing. I think we're moving much more into the inner guru, the archetype of the guru, where we are, our inner teacher is taking a stronger seat. So we are becoming more able to trust ourselves and our intuition and move into a more harmonized state with our heart and our mind, moving into a more coherent state, as opposed to being in trauma and stress and operating in a state of survival. We're moving much more into our natural state of being, which is in line with nature, with the universe, with God, with all that is. Yeah, it's a really lovely process that is occurring on the planet. We're moving far more into this heart-based love state of being unconditionally loving, other than being driven by the mind, which is a limited state, which is where the ego lives, which is where all the fear and the doubt and all of those things live. The mind has polarity to it, and the heart doesn't have that. The heart is infinite, it is unlimited, it is omnipotent and very powerful. So moving from more of a victim state on the planet, we are all moving more into a creator state. There are different areas of our lives where we are more in a victim state. So for instance, you might be in more of a victim state in relationships and you feel less in your power with them. or it could be with money. Money might be one of your weaker areas. So we all have areas where we are still moving out of victim consciousness, but we are moving much more into a creator space where we are the creators of our own lives and we get to create what we want. There are still some things that are fated. There are certain things that we've signed up for before we come into this world. But what we are actually doing, we are taking the reins of our lives, and instead of being in a more of a fated energy where life just keeps happening to us, we are moving through all our karma, and the more we clear our blocks, clear our traumas, clear all our karmic past, which karma is really just another word for cause and effect. It is when you do certain things, there's repercussions for those. So the more we clear all the karma out of the way, the more we can move into our dharma, which is our destiny as opposed to our fated life. So we get to be the creators and we get to choose how we want our life to be, and we can move into that through clearing out those blocks and rewiring ourselves and healing. So it is a lifelong journey, but the more we get past the major blocks, the more we can live in harmony and in a state of peace in our hearts. So how do we move from the victim state, or in whatever varying degrees we may be in it, to an empowered state? We actually need to be willing to do so. There needs to be a desire to do that, and choosing to walk a path of self-inquiry where we actually are willing to meet our demons, our fears, and take ownership of our behaviors instead of projecting them onto other people. We need to integrate missing aspects of ourselves, the parts we've split off from ourselves or we've repressed because they are blocking, or they are traumas, and basically our survival mechanism was to shut down those parts of ourselves because it didn't feel safe. This is all what we want to move out of. Moving into this state of self-inquiry, going within and meeting yourself often happens through crisis and upheaval, which we all, I'm sure, go through to varying degrees at all different points of our lives. I mean, I've had major life turmoil and different events occurring where it's basically my whole life has just ended how it was, and I've gone through a major rebirth, maybe gone through a dark night of the soul. For instance, around my late 20s, I was closing out what was over a decade relationship with someone who was emotionally abusive, which was a reflection of my own inner bully, my own inner loathing. It didn't start out that way, and obviously there was some level of love for me to stay in that, but it's sort of like the frog in the pot. The water boils over, and if you put the frog in when the water's cold and turn it up, the frog will not know that it's getting cooked to death, and if you put it in the boiling hot water, it will just jump out. We get slowly conditioned into these behavioural patterns within relationships. I certainly had these beliefs about myself where I did not feel worthy of love. I had lots of love to give, but I wasn't able to receive love. I chose a relationship that was reflective of that, where I didn't need to fully show up and be myself. I could let my wounded aspects live. At that age, my relationship was breaking down. My business, which I'd had for quite a number of years, I was a fashion designer and had my own label with stores across Melbourne. That was coming to an end because I did not have the cash flow to keep it going. Within the fashion industry, you need to have the money to pay for the season ahead before you've even got the money for the last season. So I just didn't have the cash flow, and I was trying to be too many people. I was not specializing. I mean, you can always look back in hindsight, of course, but so my business was ending, and also where I was living, which was a warehouse home in Hawthorne East in Melbourne, that was getting torn down. So that was my workspace. That was where I lived on my own. And this is the time in our late 20s when Saturn If you know anything about astrology, Saturn return happens. So it returns to the place it was when you were born. Saturn is a very slow yielding energy. It's a teacher, the lord of karma. Saturn basically will obliterate anything that's in the way or that is not in alignment with who you came in to be. So in my late 20s, my relationship, my business, and my home all were being ended, being destroyed, and I needed to recreate myself. And I went into a very dark space at that time, felt very broken, drank lots of wine and ate lots of chocolate, and stayed in bed for a few weeks at one stage. It was a painful stage of my life. And yeah, I thought my life was ending. Everything was very, very difficult. And I found solace at that time in yoga. Yoga was my time. I'd go several times a week to yoga, and that's when I was able to find peace. I'd go within, I'd feel whole, I'd feel complete within that space. I wouldn't need to think about any of my worries that were going on in the outside world. So that was my place of peace, and that started me going into a more reflective journey of self and rebuilding my life. So I then ended up slowly building back, getting a job in the fashion industry with a larger national company in the design team there, JAG. And I went and saved up, and I did a yoga course to become a yoga teacher with the Australian Yoga Academy, and I also ended up buying a house with my sister. So it was a really pivotal time where I was able to slowly bring back change. But the yoga for me was a savior at that time. So, and that was me choosing myself and learning to listen to my internal guidance and trusting that. I didn't trust my internal guidance for a long time. I did not listen. And the destructive relationship that I was in kept getting more and more destructive. You know, I probably should have left a lot earlier, but we make our choices and we leave things when we're ready. So that's what it was. I really started choosing myself at that age and following my divine guidance over what my mind was telling me, which was the fear of being alone, of not being with this person that I'd had many, many lifetimes with and felt so familiar with. It's profound how these things can affect us. So yeah, learning to trust the divine guidance and listen to that inner niggle and the inner voice is actually a process, because through our lives we get taught to listen to the external world, listen to our parents, our teachers, the authorities, the news, whatever it is that you're listening to. We're being conditioned from all these external sources, our friends, whatever is influencing us, we can allow that to condition us and shape us, which it does to some extent anyway. But all of those influences from outside actually can prevent us from being the authors of our own lives, from being the authorities of ourselves. So the more we can listen to our internal voice, quieten the mind and come into a cohesive state, be balanced and in alignment, and learn to relax the body and not be running on adrenaline, which a lot of people are. They're throwing back the coffees or the beer or whatever it is to cope. You know, they learn these coping mechanisms in their teenage years and then they drink every day. We all have these different things that occur to us. So the more we can learn to move into a state of trust with what the divine has in store for us, what is our higher self is saying for us, because, you know, they've got a better view of everything up there. So trusting and allowing that to flow through has been a pivotal thing for me. And the more I've gone along, the more I've come to know myself, cleared my filters out and really taken the time to do that and come into a more balanced state, the more louder this internal guidance has become, the more I've attuned to it. It's like a muscle. We can allow ourselves to listen, the more we can train our mind, you know, to serve us. It is a servant. It's there to serve the heart. And the heart serves our divine will. So we serve the divine and our highest good and our callings if we can train the monkey of the mind. And they speak a lot about that in yoga. When I was a young child, I remember riding my tricycle, and I was riding towards this tree in the backyard at mum and dad's, this huge gum tree that was right at the back. And my tricycle, I nearly crashed into it. And I remember feeling lifted and just missing the tree. Like I could feel something had moved me. And I knew that there was something greater guiding me. Like I had that knowingness from a young child on. And my mum often tells me, you know, like we stood on a snail when I was a child, and I said, Mum, that it's okay, you know, that snail's gonna, Mum said, oh no, and I said, it's okay, that snail will be born again. So I've always had this awareness in me, but through wanting to fit into, wanting to be a part of the world and this society that we've been born in, I really was conditioned into not being myself. So my whole life changed when I was 30, and that was my first dark night of the soul that I went through. There was also a point in my 20s when I went to study I studied fashion and at RMIT, and I went to New York, and I was there sort of for a month. I got a special grant to go there. When I got there, I was there for almost a month, and I knew I had to leave. I just had this knowingness that I had to leave. And weirdly enough, in my book that I had, which was the Lonely Planet guide at the time, we had those Lonely Planet books. Now everything's probably online, but the Lonely Planet book was actually incorrect. It said that the Empire State Building, which was a couple of blocks away from where I was boarding at the fashion school there, FIT, said that that was the largest building in New York. And I remember going up there with the girl that I was staying there with from RMIT as well. We were looking, and we were there at dusk, and we were looking out across the skyline of New York, and we were saying, oh, what are those two buildings? They actually look bigger than this building. That's weird. And then I somehow found out that the Twin Towers are actually larger buildings than the Empire State, and I had thought I might go there the following week. But yeah, there was just this feeling that I needed to leave. There was something was going to happen, and I said that to my roommate from Australia I was there with. I said to her, something is happening here. You know, I have this feeling, and it was the strangest thing. And I just decided that I had to leave. They suggested that I stay till after the weekend and have a think about it or board somewhere else. And I knew that I had to leave. I was feeling sick. I had all these things were going on with me, and I was just being nudged to get out of there. And I remember having tears streaming down my face as I got into the cab to go to the airport. I just couldn't understand why this was happening. You know, I had this amazing opportunity to study, you know, and have this scholarship in New York, and I had to leave. It just didn't make sense. And tears streaming down my face on the way to the airport. I was like, why is this happening? You know, I was asking my angels, anyone who was listening, God, why is this happening? And I look over at this big wall, and there was a huge mushroom cloud painted on the wall. And through my tears, on the other side of the freeway, there was just ambulances. The freeway was blocked up for some reason. There was just flashing lights everywhere. And I thought, oh, this is it. My plane is going down and I'm going to die. I had no idea what was going on and why that was happening. I left Sunday night, and then on Tuesday morning, I had arrived several hours earlier at my uncle's house in Germany. I flew into the Netherlands and took a train down to to him and my grandma's place. And then we watched on the TV as the Twin Towers the planes flew into those. So that was remarkable. And even the day before I chose to leave, I was sitting in a subway eating there, and there was this fire truck that drove past, and I was quite teary and upset at the time. And the fireman just the fire truck seemed to go in slow motion. One of the firemen was just caught my eye, and we sort of locked gazes, and he waved in slow motion to me, and that really haunted me afterwards. It was like this weird kind of like, I just felt like he didn't make it, and I did. So that was a really pivotal point as well, where I was shown that trusting my intuition and trusting my gut feeling is so important. Choosing the self and listening to the self is imperative for us on our journeys. The more we can do that and trust those inner nudges, trust what we feel and how we sense things. We get given signs all the time from our higher guidance, and it's really up to us whether we listen or not. Learning to be kind to ourselves and not deprecate ourselves, being our own best friends is so imperative as well, and just learning to listen to the self. It's such a powerful thing, and the more we can do that, the better. But training ourselves to trust the inner voice and listening to self over others is definitely a really, really powerful thing to do, following that divine guidance. So starting an internal dialogue with self and really learning to love self is part of the path. I mean, I'm not perfect and I'm not claiming to be. I certainly am on a journey. I think we revisit a lot of the things that come up for us through our lives. It's not just all cut and dry and, oh, that's it, I'm healed. We can definitely get in there and face our fears and meet our monsters and, come into a more cohesive state, integrate those shadow aspects. Certain things will come back and revisit us to varying degrees. We are all here in process, and we need to be compassionate with ourselves and patient as we go. Unpacking the subconscious drivers and the source of our blocks and our wounds and underlying beliefs, and understanding that the inner child, the parts of ourselves that have been wounded, the first 7 years are where a lot of our traumas are activated, and we all have them to varying degrees. I'd say pretty much everyone here on the planet has different types of trauma that they've experienced, and the more we all work through those things and learn to love ourselves, then we are able to transcend them, and we can move into more love, more self-awareness, more consciousness, and just feel more peaceful. So we want to feel peaceful. Otherwise, it's just not a nice place to be inside our mind. Our brains are neuroplastic. We can rewire them. It's a mixture of the body being able to learn to regulate itself and become into balance, and also learning to train the mind. So training the mind to think differently, to no longer think those old thoughts. These neural pathways that we have become like super highways. If we're thinking those same thoughts all the time, they're running up and down. Those neurons will fire less as we change the beliefs and we build new roads, new paths in our brain, and it's actually a fantastic thing to do. So the more we can change our beliefs, the better. One great way to change our beliefs is through affirmations or intention. So intention and beliefs are, a lot of them are subconscious. So it will take time to work through those with varying modalities and in different ways. Through love is one of the greatest healers. Affirmations, or in yoga, we often use sankalpas, which a sankalpa is an intention that's often said quietly in one's mind or out loud prior to a practice to affirm what we intend to embody more of through that practice. And then we might revisit that at the end. Let's say I want to increase my self-worth. So in order to do that, saying I am worthy of all the abundance that life has to offer may not hit home, like it might not be enough because it's conflicting with subconscious beliefs or parts of me that just can't accept that I'm worthy of all it is, or whatever my affirmation that I want to work with is. So What might be a better way is saying, I am becoming more worthy of all that life has to offer every day in every way. I am becoming. So becoming might sit more comfortably than actually saying I am, because I am is quite absolute and that might be too much. So saying I am becoming is a great way to work with intention and beliefs that we want to bring into our being and start to embody. So another great one is I believe it's possible. I believe it's possible for me to become more worthy of all that life has to offer. So be it. It is great to do this kind of reprogram going into an alpha or theta state. So alpha is 8 to 12 hertz. So there's 5 different brain states. Just before we go to bed or within the first hour of waking, we're most likely in alpha state. And that is when we're most programmable. So that's a really great time to meditate and bring in intentions, or to do yoga. So when we first wake up, and have a sankalpa as part of our yoga practice, bringing in these intentions and taking time to rewire ourselves is a really powerful thing to do. The TV, if you watch TV, I do not watch TV, haven't for a long time. Occasionally I will watch something that I'm choosing through various streaming services. However, I'm not into the news or any of those sort of things, because when we watch TV, we're actually in alpha state and we are highly programmable. It is going straight into the subconscious, and you might be taking on beliefs that you actually don't want. You're not choosing those beliefs. You're being slowly conditioned and programmed without fully knowing that. It's very powerful. Our subconscious takes in like millions of pieces of information as opposed to conscious mind. The more present we can be and aware, the more we can choose what we're taking in, and the more we can be in a harmonized state with that. Have a play with affirmations if you haven't already. Even writing is really powerful at the edges of the day. Writing actually connects the hand with the brain and the memory in such a profound way. It really gets in there much, much deeper than anything that would be typed. So consider handwriting new beliefs that you want to form, affirmations that you'd like to have. So what you intend to happen, what are you intending to believe about yourself? We are shaping ourselves all the time. We are choosing who we want to be in every given moment. Every day you wake up and you get to choose who you are. You get to design your life. And the more we sweep out all those old limiting beliefs and aspects of self that are just false and not who we are truly at our core, the more we get to shine and be our authentic selves, be who we're here to be. And that is the greatest service we can do for ourselves and for others. So in closing, thank you so much for joining me. And I look forward to exploring more tools. My next guest is a fabulous singer and artist, and I'm really excited to share with you her beautiful energy, and she has some amazing tools to offer as well. So I'm just excited to bring all these different ways that we can improve ourselves and keep growing and keep learning. I always like to be teachable and keep learning through life. It's such an important thing. We live so much longer and better when we stay open to all the possibilities that are. Thank you so much again, and sending so much love out to everyone. Thank you.